Good afternoon. My name is Rob de Vos. I'm the Counsel General of the Netherlands, and I guess I'm here in Pittsburgh because 2 years ago I fell in love with this city. I fell in love with this city when I met Don and we organized together a mini conference where Eindhoven, Amsterdam were brought together with Pittsburgh to learn lessons. And today I also realized, Don, that we made a small mistake because we didn't invite Rotterdam. And here they are in a delegation with 5 people, thanks to the German Marshall Fund. So we made that good. I would like to talk about urban development in the Netherlands, to boast a little bit about my country, because I'm very happy with my country, and I'm a diplomat, so I'm being paid to lie a little bit with my country. Then I would like to share with you some trends, and I'm inspired by the book of Bruce Katz, maybe a little bit provocative, but I mean in these days, when you discuss your national government, you may be excused, but I think they are very wise lessons, and I see the same pattern in the Netherlands. And thirdly, if there's still time, I put myself into a position if they ask me to be an advisor of a mayor. And maybe it's not Bristol, but, well, maybe Bristol. And what are the 5 challenges? Now, about the Netherlands, a little bit of boasting. You saw, I mean, geographics, Europe, we are small, but we are the 17th country in the Economic World League. Now, if we are 17 in Brazil, in the soccer championship, we are very disappointed. But in the world, it's not too bad. And we are in the top 10 of GDP per capita richest in the world. And equity, you discussed equity in the session before us, we are doing still quite well. I mean, it's being measured by the Gini coefficient, and of course we realize also, and we see that middle class is under pressure in the Netherlands, but not as heavily as in other countries. And I have to tell you that thanks to Dutch investments in this country, 600,000 jobs are being created. So that's far away from the 10 million of Bruce, but we make our contribution. We like to think that we have a Randstad, a city on the edge. And you can measure a Randstad. And the Randstad in the Netherlands compared to other metro regions, and the Germans have a yardstick for that, and they put London as the yardstick number 100, Paris 98, our Randstad is somewhere in the 70s. So we are doing quite well. It's being measured by interactions and the intensity and diversity of these interactions. I believe we are in a crossroads situation in the Netherlands. We see fundamental changes to our society. And our model, Consist model, who has worked very well in the past, our Polder model, is fundamentally tested. And I will tell you why. But first, the Netherlands can best be described and explained by our gateway function. We are in a delta, and cities in the Netherlands in general are gateways. Amsterdam has its airport, Rotterdam its seaport, and nowadays we call Eindhoven, the city where Philips started, the brainport. Accessibility and openness have driven this agenda for modernization and transition. And we claim this success by what we call the golden triangle, the triple helix. That means public, private, partnerships and cooperation together with academic institutions. And this model has worked particularly well in agro-industry, in logistics, and also in the water management sector. Now, so much for diplomacy. What kind of trends do I see? It's also widely acknowledged in the Netherlands that cities and their managements are playing a much more important role in the process of modernization, transition and adaptations. our mayors are becoming more visible, also outside their city borders. And city management is taking its role, I think because of a number of reasons. One is there's a frustration of lingering of national decision-making. And you can see that, for instance, in the housing sector. And sometimes it's because the actions of cities have more immediate impact. I see that in the education sector. And sometimes it's driven by actions of citizens themselves, to be seen in the energy sector. And Nico here from Rotterdam will explain tomorrow that you also see it in the housing, in the do-it-yourself housing sector. And then there is the mandate being given by the national governments to cities, sometimes because of financial reasons. And we see that in social programs and in health. How do cities cope with these transitions? A fascinating process started in Amsterdam, or in Rotterdam, and in The Hague, where both cities are working now together with 24 municipalities to a common agenda. And research of the University of Delft has shown that this cooperation, if it's properly done, will create an investment of 30 billion euros. An example of bottom-up approach combined with a larger global vision. Now, this is what Bruce Katz, I think, calls a metropolitan revolution, building a network. But there are also other examples, and I see them in Rotterdam. In the waterfront development, where there's a lot of space left because shipbuilding has gone, and it was filled by a high-level vocational training school, an incubator for startups. And these small firms are created by alumni of the school and other young entrepreneurs and supervised by teachers from the school. And then there is our Maasvlakte 2. We've in fact extended the Netherlands. We've built a new harbor outside on the sea. And this has created space of the old inner harbor for building on water, floating houses. And why was this project revolutionary? Because it was financed outside the government budget, outside the city budget. Now I'm in the shoes of advising a mayor. What are the 5 challenges I will discuss with him or with her? I would say top priority, no, not top, education. Improvement of the quality of education and preventing dropout has become a top priority in urban policy. The national level is not sufficiently hands-on. Cities in the Netherlands have introduced alternative models, sometimes based on your models in the United States. For instance, the Harlem Children's Zone. And Amsterdam introduced its own quality control unit. Now, I don't believe that education is the magic formula, the solution to everything. And the road to improvement is a lot of common sense, ladies and gentlemen. It's about more time for teacher training, more respect for the profession. It's about stimulation, parents' involvement, and looking what's happening behind the front door, as is being done in the Harlem Children's Zone. And a return to human scale, because often our school complexes, our schools have become too large. And we have to measure results, although sometimes unions are against it. Secondly, infrastructure and financing. After the World War II, the Netherlands needed a lot of investments, in infrastructure. And thanks to your help of the Marshall Plan, we have succeeded. Then there was a phase emphasized the quality, doing away some said with ugliness. But now we need in the future new financing models. because the great milking cow has gone. What do I mean? A lot of the financial means from cities, the selling of public land, 15% of the revenues of municipalities and cities, the selling of public land is more or less gone. And I found this a stunning statistic of ING Bank, who said, according to their estimates, in 20 years' time, we only need half of the offices. Half of the offices in Amsterdam, Rotterdam, and The Hague are needed. And we have issues with maintenance. And like in your country, but not as severe, our infrastructure is aching. And I can't give you a clear recipe here. But I also realize that direct payments by the user is in the Netherlands still a taboo. And then there's resilience. Cities have to adapt more quickly. So flexibility is an asset. And if you are interested, I was really impressed by the work of a company called Dutch Docklands, who's building on water, utilities on water, hotels on water, houses on water, prisons on water. It makes you very flexible, not only because of climate change reasons, but also when something changes and priorities in your city. Third one is post-migrant society. The majority of the population of Amsterdam, Rotterdam, The Hague, is of post-migrant origin. That is the majority nowadays. But this majority consists of a large group of different people. So there is no majority-minority anymore. It's a very diverse communities in these cities. And that's why Dutch mayors have invested a lot in keeping what they call the city together, often criticized by populist parties. But they have to continue to do so by personally show engagement, visit possible trouble spots, and implement an anti-discrimination policy without compromise. Fourth, the city has to be an attractive place for all generations. My wife and I went from a suburb to the inner city. What did we do? We looked at public transport and biking, we looked at open and green spaces, we looked at cultural activities, and we looked at safety and security. And this last point, ladies and gentlemen, safety and security should not be taken for granted. Community policing is something which has to be fine-tuned continuously. And we follow closely, of course, the discussion in New York on stop and frisk, and I introduced mayors of Rotterdam and Amsterdam to the police in New York to discuss these issues, because they have to be discussed. Finally, resilience and climate proof. As you know, more than 20% of the Netherlands is below sea level. We make a mistake if we feel that we are safe behind the dikes. We have a multi-layered protection system nowadays. But the threat is not only the sea, it's also the rivers. It's also the heavy rainfall, which we had last week in the Netherlands. And subsidence of land. We are sinking a little bit. We do not fight water anymore. We tend to live with water and respect the way nature guides us. And as Henk Ovink, if he could have been here, he would have said, we are building by design, which is the HUD program introduced in the post-Sandy area. We like to be a partner of that. This is a constant battle. Nothing can be taken for granted. And if nature is stronger than man-made protection, need to prepare for an emergency response. So many books have been written on the importance of cities nowadays. I believe there's great value in these books. As a diplomat, I see on the one hand decision-making level going up to Brussels. Brussels is not the Commission. Brussels are national governments working together with the Commission. So there's a very important role for national parliaments and for national politicians and for national institutes. But although there's a lot of debate going on, but make no mistake, this process of integration is going on. And it will go step by step, and sometimes two for one back, but it will go on. And then on the lower level, I see more and more decision-making is being made on a city level. So these are, for a diplomat, very interesting time. Is that something new? Well, in the Golden Age, the Netherlands was based on cities. I mean, the world empire, the trade empire we made, was built on cities. Then in the 20th century, it was the nation states. Maybe the 21st century is again the century of the cities. Thank you very much for your attention.